You're listening to Radigan's Rockcast, a series focused on talking about music from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even current. Now, here's your host, Tom Radigan.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Radigan's Rockcast. I am, of course, your host, Tom Radigan. Welcome whether you're listening on Spotify, Amazon Music, Anchor, Castos, YouTube, WMYO. I'm glad you're on. Now, today we are going to be talking about Chuck Berry. We talked about Buddy Holly, we talked about Elvis Presley. Now it's time to talk about the father of rock and roll. He was known for his songwriting, his guitar style, his famous duck walk that he would do on stage. Berry was a part of the Chess label where in 1955 he recorded his hit Maybelline. Berry was going to do the song Ida Red, but instead wrote Maybelline. It was an homage, but he wrote it as like an homage to it instead. It's about a guy who couldn't catch a girl in a Coupe de Ville. He also came out with hits such as Roll Over Beethoven, Rock and Roll Music, School Days, Sweet Little 16, and his biggest hit of all, Johnny B. Good. Johnny B. Good is on a golden disc that was sent out in outer space in the 1977 Voyager mission. It just shows you how great this was, considering it was with Beethoven and Stravinsky. Just shows you that Chuck Berry is able to compose. You know, it is the greatest rock and roll song ever, even to this day, okay? So when somebody tells you something that's not Johnny B. Good's the greatest rock and roll song ever, tell them you're wrong, it's Johnny B. Good, okay? That's what I want you to do, because that is the truth, okay? So, he focused on making rock and roll something more than it was. John Lennon, I'm going to quote John Lennon of what he said about Chuck Berry's songwriting. He was writing intelligent lyrics in the 50s when people were still writing, "Oh baby, I love you so." That just shows you, it's like, Berry was writing, Chuck Berry was writing stuff that was like something that, Bob Dylan added onto in the 60s, writing about teenage youth, writing about, rebellion, all that. He was speaking to his younger audience because he knew that's who related to him, who was buying his records, he also was just an incredible showman, he just was impressive with his guitar, people that are inspired from him were Keith Richards, Bruce Springsteen. He's the reason why rock is the way it is. Chuck Berry, wherever you are, I just want you to know you aren't forgotten and your rock licks will live on through eternity. And of course, I have to give my, what my experience about Chuck Berry was. Chuck Berry, of course, I believe, is the greatest rock and roller to live. And what really kind of, disappointed me was in 2017 when he died. I don't think he got the recognition he even deserved, okay? He did not get, somebody who was the pioneer of rock. There was not as much mention as there should be. I was depressed for days when I found out he died. I took it like I knew somebody, but you know what? I felt like I did. With his music, it was just, oh God, I was so close to crying. It was an end of an era for me, It was just, oh my God. Am I getting old? What's happening to the world? That's what I can say about it. Just wow, wow. It was definitely, a shock to me in a sense. I mean, of course it shouldn't have been. He was 91 when he died. But the songs that he was able to create, like Maybelline, School Days, songs like School Days and Sweet Little 16, this was when he was writing to, his younger audience, because a lot of his younger audience were high school students, and all that, and it's just they're lyrics that are great, and John Lennon hit hit the hammer on the head, or like hit the nail on that. It's late when I'm doing this. So, but yeah. But yeah, he put the, he basically, John Lennon, basically said the right words that describe what Barry did. Okay, he it's like, yeah, like I said, it was like, this is like, he was ahead of his time before Bob Dylan was around. He was writing, but he was writing fun songs. He was writing these fun songs, but he was writing sophisticated lyrics. He was in that sense that were different than rock, than other rock music. It's actually, it's like, as in sophisticated, as in more of like intelligent, in a way of just as, of describing the phenomenon of rock. For instance, doing a whole song called Rock and Roll Music, talking about what the sensation of it is. And Johnny B. Good talking about a young guitar player who could just play guitar like ringing a bell. When I, first got into 50s music, of course I got into Chuck Berry. I mean, when I was in high school, I took a class of history of rock, and honestly, I will admit, I took the class because I knew I was gonna get an easy A. But honestly, the way I thought of all these rockers is that, in my opinion, they need their own class where you just focus and dissect their lyrics. A song like Maybelline is so interesting because, when I first listened to it, I remember as a kid, listening from my grandpa, and it was by country singer Jerry Reed, that version. And I remember, when I got into the 50s music and was watching documentary, I was like, oh, Chuck Berry did Maybelline. And Maybelline, it's an interesting thing because, like I said, it was a song that was, about, which was basically the traditional country song, Ida Red. And Chuck Berry was just going to record that. But, he was told not to, because of, the issues with the rights and all that. So he, created his own song instead, in a sense, And he worked on that, And you know what? And he said it was like, it was in that tune, it was, the melody was, based off of, Ida Red in that sense, in a sense. That's kind of how he considered it as a cover, because he really just wanted to record Ida Red. And it's a song, yeah, it's a funny song about, a guy chasing a girl in the car and all that. And, and a song that works well with this is, which was kind of like a sequel to it, was You Can't Catch Me. And it's actually interesting because it has the line, Here Come a Flap Top, which was, of course, used in the Beatles song Come Together. Which, John Lennon loved that song on that. And he actually recorded that on his album in the 70s of the rock and roll album, where he did covers of the 50s songs, which I actually did a video on my channel about. The thing about Chuck Berry, though, is that, with songs like that, or Roll Over Beethoven, that's another thing that represents Lennon's words of his intelligent lyrics. Talking about how this, his theme was writing about the phenomenon of rock and roll, and that, Roll Over Beethoven, now the rhythm and blues are coming in, now the rock is coming in. Nobody's going to be dissecting. He was basically, I feel like he was basically stating that, we're no longer going to be dissecting classical music. We're going to be dissecting rock music. This is going to live on to eternity. And you know what? It does. Rock music lives on. Like Chuck Berry says in School Days, hail, hail, rock and roll. Okay? Rock is an art. Rock is breathing, living. When you play a Chuck Berry song, even though he's dead, he still lives on. It's, it's sad in the sense that he really didn't get the praise that he deserved. In that sense, he still does not get the credit he deserves. This is the father of rock and roll. And he did do other songs in the 60s, but of course his 50s were his prime stuff. But he did stuff like You Never Can Tell, Nadine, No Particular Place to Go. You Never Can Tell, of course, is in Pulp Fiction. But an interesting thing to point out, which is so strange to me, what really is just strange, is that his version of, his song, My Dinnerlin, was a #1 hit. Life is Crazy. That song in the 70s I'm not even going to go into what it is about. But what I'm trying to say is that his stuff from the 50s and a lot of these artists, what they did in the 50s is just the most incredible stuff that the stuff they did later on doesn't really even matter. Chuck Berry was in his prime. He did stuff that, influenced artist after artist, from Keith Richards, from Bruce Springsteen, from Jimmy Page, just anybody with a guitar loved Chuck Berry. And other songs that I love to mention of Chuck Berry, mentioned a little bit about, of course, Johnny B. Good. But, why don't we talk a little bit about Too Much Monkey Business? That's a song that I was listening to, today. And, another just a funny song to sing, just catchy, like Too Much Monkey Business for me. The way he sings lines, I love his lines like, sailor talking me to every day, like, oh yeah, like, no need to go over school, my objections overruled. I can't even think of it because the way he sings it is so fast, but the way he does it too, and the way he does stuff like, like go to school, no need to write a book, too much monkey business, and the way he just does that, it's just, he does it so fast, and he does it like, like somebody speaking and then going into the next train of thought, and all that, and it works so perfectly. Other songs, even a song that's not mentioned as much, but is also good, and was in one of the Alan Freed movies. You Can't Catch Me was also in an Alan Freed movie, but Oh Baby Doll, that was also in a Alan Freed movie as well. All I gotta say to end this rockcast is Chuck Berry will live on, okay? If you haven't listened to Chuck Berry's music, I urge you to check it out. Check out the magic of his guitar. See a video of him play the duck walk with the guitar, how he does it. It's incredible. And that's it for today's Rockcast. I'm Tom Radigan, and I will see you next time. Bye.